What's up, guys? My name's Osmond, and I'm going to just kind of start taking a look at Ramattra and just talk about sort of what my thoughts are initially on this hero. So, if you haven't watched the video yet, go ahead and do that first before you come to here, because this is just I'm not really gonna replay the video. You're just gonna see what the wiki's talking about with the hero. Let's just talk a little bit about it. So, for the abilities, the staff damage looks to be 25 rate per second out of the ammo, the total of 100 ammo. This means that he can shoot the staff for 4 seconds. And then it's saying here that it's dealing about 4 damage per second. And after watching the video, I do agree with this. I think it is 4 damage per second, and this would imply that he deals 100 damage per second. For a tank, that's fine. That's kind of like on par with other tanks. For example, that's a big ass calculator. Sorry. Reinhardt, for example, does 85 damage a swing and swings, I believe, at a rate of 1 swing per 0.8 seconds. All right. And so Reinhardt does 106.25 sustained damage per second. In this case, we are doing 4 damage per projectile for 25 projectiles per second. Can do it for up to 4 seconds. And similar to his pummel, by the way, which is 60 damage. And it says it looks like 1 attack every 0.6 seconds. Divide that by 0.6, you get 100 sustained damage per second. So still a little bit below Reinhardt, but not too bad because it also pierces. We're getting there though. Okay, so the Void Accelerator, it does 100 damage per second. And from what I can see in the video, I don't believe that he does any additional critical damage per second. It's just a normal crit. It can headshot, but it's not like Widow where it does extra headshot damage, or Kiriko where it does extra headshot damage. We're not in that realm. Okay. And so the headshot damage is 200 per second. And now that sounds like a lot. That sounds like an echo focusing beam kind of territory. And it sounds really scary. But let me tell you as well that this is a projectile. And as well, projectiles, assumedly, can be eaten with defense matrix. And this has to sustain a headshot. This isn't like beam, like from Echo, where you can sustain it on somebody and it doesn't have to be clicking the head. No, this has to be clicking the head. And it's a projectile, so it's not hit scan. You can't just like track the head perfectly. If you're trying to go for all headshots, people aren't standing still, right? You got to track the head. And what you're probably going to do is track like the upper neck torso and get some headshots and some non-headshots. And so that's kind of what you're expecting here. And so if you can sustain the nanites of what they're calling them on a target, then you can expect to get the 100 damage per second. Probably, if you have good tracking at close range, then you can like lead it and probably get the full 100 damage. With a little bit of headshots, you might be looking at like 120 damage a second, just from close range if you can sustain those headshots some of the time. All right. You're probably not going to sustain the headshots 100% of the time, maybe unless you have just like a no mobility, really poor strafing Roadhog Orisa, like monkey, something like of that nature. This does definitely output more single target damage than the pummel. So the Nemesis form, really good at obviously hitting multiple targets, but this much better for just hitting single targets. All right, let's keep going. You have a barrier, and this void barrier is similar to like Mei, where Mei brings up there's like a thing on the ground. You can see like the light trail on the ground where you're gonna put the barrier, where Mei does an ice wall. It's similar like that. It comes up, and from the wiki here, it says that it is cooldown of 15 seconds and a health of 1,000. The trailer video that we were given did not actually tell us how long the shield lasts, but they did say it was for a short duration. And so what I can expect from that is roughly 5 seconds, probably around 5 seconds. This is similar to kind of the way you would play Orisa in Overwatch 1. It's not like Sigma Barrier, okay? So you know how Sigma is really good in these sniper comps where it's like you put a shield for your sniper so that your sniper can just like look in a direction and stay there. And if you ever have to replace the shield, you just pull the shield back, wait 2.5 seconds, and put it back again. This is not the same. You have to commit to the space that you play the barrier in. Excuse me. Similar to Orisa from Overwatch 1, where when you placed the barrier, that's where the fight happens. That kind of like, as soon as the barrier lands, all people in the lobby now understand the scope of the fight. That's where the fight is happening. You can't take it back. There's no takes backsies. This is a 15-second cooldown, right? And that's a big deal because otherwise, Ramattra really doesn't have defensive abilities. His only other defensive ability is going into Nemesis form. So if he's pressured and he never really was ready to like make an actual push in, he might be forced into Nemesis form to get that 150 armor and then have to like power block and walk away, which we don't even know how good power block is at this point either. But just by the way, let's keep going. So when you activate Nemesis form, it's an 8-second duration and an 8-second cooldown. So that's what we're looking at, by the way. The cooldown does not begin until you get out of Nemesis form. It is cancelable too, as well. So when you go into Nemesis form, you're going to get your 150 armor, and this is going to just stack on top of whatever your health is. So if you're down to 200 health, then you're going to go up to 350 with that surplus all being considered armor. I don't believe you keep the armor outside of Nemesis form. So if you undo the Nemesis form, you will lose that armor. I think it is contingent on you holding on to the Nemesis form. When you're in Nemesis form, you get the pummel and the block. All right, we're going to take a look at both of these here in just a second. Okay, so the pummel, I've already talked about it a little bit. It is 100 sustained damage per second, 60 damage per punch. From what we saw in the video, it looks like it can go through shields. All right, it has an 11-meter radius. All right, it has a little bit of an explosion. It's unclear whether it's just a piercing target, just a pierce right through the enemy team, and it's just that narrow window that has multiple targets, or if it's like an actual explosion. And it can hit like to the side. So we don't actually know that yet. I don't think we're aware of that. And what it seems to be is that it just goes through. And what we saw in the video was that the further away it is, the less damage it deals, because we saw that Ashe and we saw the Kiriko behind. The Ashe died first to the first 4 shots, and then the Kiriko lived the 4 shots. And so what that tells me is that there's fall off on it. It's not 60 to everyone. It's just there's a little bit of fall off there. And so it probably does 60 really up close, and it probably falls off to something like 30 or 40 towards the back of that sort of 11 meters. Okay. This attack, it is strong. Okay. But again, it is less sustained damage per second than Reinhardt. So yes, it hits multiple people. Yes, it can cleave. However, it is less than Reinhardt. So Reinhardt's hammer swing does definitely do a little bit more damage. Rein can also throw a fire strike and start swinging like a fire strike cancel kind of thing. That's a different thing. But yeah, like all in all, in a really tight brawl, I could see Reinhardt potentially doing more damage to the Ramattra. But if you're really tight and in a line, I can also see how Ramattra can do overall more cleave than the Reinhardt. So let's talk about the block now. And this is like the main thing of the hero. Like when you're evaluating this hero, I think you really have to talk about the block a lot. The block is the defensive ability that he has, okay? And it offers 75% damage reduction. And I want to remind you that Doomfist, with his block, is very similar, except that Doomfist is on cooldown. It's a cooldown. This is no cooldown. So you can just like block, unblock, if you want. And you can only do it during the 8-second duration of the Nemesis form. So you don't always have access to this ability, and there could be a moment when you need it and you just don't have access for like another 8 seconds because you just came out of Nemesis form and you just don't have it. You have nothing. You don't have any other defensive ability other than to put your wall up when you go back into bitch form. But when you're using block, you're going to have a movement speed penalty. And this is a big deal. The movement speed penalty is a really big deal. You cannot activate Nemesis form, and then run at your opponent holding block and expect to close that distance. You're not going to close the distance unless they're not moving. You're not closing the distance. Even with Lucio, like maybe with Lucio speed boost. So this is a 50% movement speed penalty, and I believe Lucio gives a plus 60% on amp speed. So there's a possibility if you have Lucio and your amp speed blocking into the enemy team, you can actually close distance, assuming they don't have a Lucio. But it's going to be likely that all the teams are going to have a Lucio because Lucio is not going anywhere. We are still going to be in the speed boost meta. It's still going to be really, really strong to be in the speed boost meta. So that's a big deal. We don't know as well how susceptible he is to stuns, just like in Doomfist Power Block. We don't know. Like it could be like Power Block where a hook just fucks him, a javelin just fucks him, or on a sleep dart just gets through it and sleeps him. Like, does it really matter? Is it just stupid? Like, we don't know. Now let's look at Ravenous Vortex. It is 10 damage per second, roughly. They're calling it 10 damage a second. A little bit of a movement speed penalty. Okay, so they don't move as fast. And then the max range is 4-meter radius. All right, that's a total 8-meter diameter. Not very long. Excuse me. And then a duration, 3 seconds. Cooldown, 12 seconds. It's available in both forms. That's pretty strong. So this ability, the biggest part about the ability is going to be, in my opinion, this movement speed penalty. If it did nothing else, if it didn't do any damage, then it'd be kind of whatever. It also grounds flying targets, by the way. I think everyone pretty much knows that. The grounding flying target's really cool because what it allows you to do is ground a Pharmacy or ground an Echo Mercy or an Echo or just a Mercy and then just pummel them. Or you don't even have to go into Nemesis form if you really don't want to. But it lets you ground those flyers and brings them into pummel range. Pretty cool. Or brings them into your projectile range a lot closer. Or just into your team. Your team can just walk into them. But again, the biggest thing is the movement speed penalty. All right? Very similar to Sojourn. Being able to slow enemies down helps you in closing the distance. So if you want to slow them down so it's easy for you to close the distance to them, then this is going to help you do that just for a moment. You got to plan these. Like this is 12-second cooldown for only 3 seconds. So this is not going to be like firing this like crazy all the time. This is a bit of a longer cooldown. All right. And what it lets you do is it lets you close distance. It lets you not just that as well, but it doesn't allow your opponent to just walk away for free in some certain scenarios. But really what it seems to me is like, and this is why I have the paint up, all right? If you're Ramattra, right, and you're going to be right here, then you can put a barrier, like let's say the enemy team is going to be like over here, all right? You got enemy team, there's the 5 people, okay? What you can do is you can put your barrier in between them, kind of like what you consider a May wall. Hopefully this means that the tank does not get heals from the healer anymore, because you're going to block off the heals. And then what you do is you put the Ravenous Vortex right here. And hopefully this means it's harder for this tank here to walk behind the shield. So it just takes longer to do it, right? And what this allows you to do is then go into Nemesis form, start walking this way, and they're slow to walk behind the barrier. As they get behind this barrier, hopefully they're not hitting you back so you don't have to hold the power block. And then you can just go straight into pummeling. Just pummel, right? And that's kind of like, I guess, what you were looking for. That's the playstyle I think that you're trying to find with this hero, because you're not like Sigma. I don't feel like you can play this like a Sigma, right? If you're Ramattra, you cannot just say, oh, here's my barrier, I'm going to start damaging you. Because then what, right? Like this barrier does not last long. All right, that's going to go away in like 5 seconds. And then it's not replaceable. Like if you place a barrier here shooting this way, and then suddenly the enemy team just goes to here and starts shooting you from this way, you cannot, like, oops, what the fuck am I doing? Oh my God, I don't know it. Nope, that's not what I wanted. I want to go back to 100%. Over here, what the fuck? Back down less than that. Let's do that. Okay. Enemy team, oh my God, what is this tool? Holy shit, that's cursed. Uh, Ooh, that's good enough. Whatever. The enemy team goes over here. They start shooting you this way. That's a bad arrow, but you get the idea. You cannot just pull this barrier off and then start putting it this way and shooting here. You have to just, now you're rotating. Now you're like, what are you going to do? Right. And where Sigma could have choices, he could just take this barrier and replace it, or he could pull the barrier, and for the duration of like waiting for that barrier, he could hold up his grasp, and now he's going to eat projectiles, and they can't really do much about that usually. I mean, the projectile's just going to get eaten. That is what it is. And as soon as that's over, he just puts the barrier back, and it's like there's never a downtime of that sustain. Whereas Ramattra, he doesn't have hands up. If he wants to do that, he needs to activate Nemesis form and then hold up his hands. Like, what the fuck? What kind of gameplay is that? Like, you can't do that. You can't just shoot from here, and then if they angle you, if they kind of like rotate on you a little bit, you can't just pull up Nemesis form and block and expect to like be doing great things. Like, that does seem like a big weakness to this hero, is that he really has to play around the Nemesis form and the shield, and there does seem to be like windows of time where he's just like not good. He really doesn't seem super great. How can I explain this in a better way? I should have prepared this explanation a little bit more. It just seems to me like you're not always ready to go in for a brawl. It doesn't seem like you're always ready to go in for a brawl. And if you are, is it just going to be the Ramattra? Because like, what now? What's your ideal team comp? Do you go like Ramattra, and then you probably want the Lucio because there's a little bit of not only is there a little bit of a brawl element to this hero for sure with the Nemesis form, but Lucio's just the meta, right? Like, we are in the speed boost meta here, right? And so you got Ramattra, you got Lucio, and then what? So Sojourn is expected to be really good next season, despite this despite the expectations here. We have Sojourn expected to get nerfed in the form of, based on a blog post they did, that the fall off, there's going to be a fall off on Rail, so Rail isn't going to be 200 damage any distance. Like, you're not just going to be better Widow anymore. It's just you're going to have to actually use your movement to put yourself in a closer position to get a 200 damage Rail. However, given that Sojourn's still insane, I'm still probably putting Sojourn. All right, let's just assume that Sojo is still good. So now we're looking at this. The question is, what's the second DPS? Are we doubling down on range pressure? Are we playing more of a pokey comp because Ramattra does a shield thing and does shoot from range, and apparently Ramatra's projectile like primary fire is no fall off, so he can actually do that from a long ass distance away. In that case, what is the second DPS hero we're going to run? Is it going to be fucking, I don't know, Soldier? Is it going to be Hanzo? I don't know. But here's the thing, right? I feel like if we're going to go in for brawls, we're going to need a brawly DPS. I do feel like this is probably going to be something like a Reaper or Mei. Reaper or Mei. And then the question is, what's the last place? And that's going to be the support. Looking at the buffs, nerfs that we're looking at here, the Kiriko is going to get nerfed. I don't know how much. I don't think they're going to nerf her into non-viability. But not only is Kiriko getting nerfed, but Mercy is getting some kind of buff that is unknown. Ana is getting some kind of buff that's unknown. So Ana might be good. Mercy's probably still not going to be good. I don't think they can buff Mercy in a way that matters. So yes, Mercy's going to get buffed, but probably not in a way that matters. I think they're going to nerf Kiriko's ult in some way, and I'm not sure exactly how. It's unclear, but they are going to nerf Kiriko in some way. So given that, I mean, it's still probably viable to play Kiriko. I mean, I'd say, depending, obviously. I mean, they might nuke her. They might nuke Kiriko into the ground. If so, maybe Kiriko's not the play. From what I'm seeing here, though, it could be BAP. It could be Kiriko. Maybe the answer is Ana, because Ana can maybe, dude, I don't know, like, can throw a nade. The nade could create a trigger for Rom to push brawl mode. Like, there's definitely, depending on the Ana buffs, like what if Ana's nade cooldown is reduced, and like that's what my prediction is. I think they're gonna adjust cooldowns because I don't know what else they're gonna do with this hero. They're probably gonna make sleep dart not 15 seconds, maybe bring it down to like 12 so that she's a little more viable in that regard. And then if that's the case, then they could probably leave her nade alone. She probably just throws a nade at the enemy team, and like I said, if we put Ana in here, oh, that Ana is not Ama. Ana. If we put Ana in this mix, then actually putting Nano on Rom seems kind of gross. Now that I'm thinking about it, that seems kind of really gross. This might be meta. Okay, this might be a thing. Let's talk about Annihilation real quick before we kind of go any further with this. We'll kind of keep this on the back of our mind. All right, I'm thinking about this. Annihilation. Now, this has been controversial because we've been talking about how the duration resets. All right, but let me explain it before, in case you haven't figured out what this ability does yet. It's going to create this huge swarm of nanites around Ramattra. It's 11 meters in radius. Okay, and it's going to suck the life out of enemy team members, and it has a 3-second duration. 3 seconds, that's not long, but while you're dealing damage, the duration is paused. So if you start it, it goes 1 second later, and now suddenly at the 2-second mark, there's 2 seconds left, you start dealing damage to an enemy, then the 2 seconds no longer depletes. It's just paused. It's at 2 seconds until you are no longer dealing any damage in an 11-meter radius to any enemy. Then it's done. Then it goes back to doing the cooldown. It'll be 2 more seconds on that, and then it'll be done. Now, one note: there's a Ramattra nerf. Apparently, there was a tweet that went out, and they corrected themselves, saying that they were not intending on actually giving him the 50% enemy damage output reduction within the radius. He said that was a glitch. They apologized, or glitch or a typo or whatever. They did not mean to do that. Who's to say whether that was actually a glitch or typo, or if they just like saw the feedback and thought, wow, that might have been too overpowered. Maybe we'll just take that part out. Whatever. All in all, that's out. So now it is just the small bit of damage per second. And it can just kind of stay in that form, and also transforms you into Nemesis form, by the way, if you're not in Nemesis form. This is actually a pretty big deal because Nemesis form only lasts for 8 seconds, but this can potentially make it last indefinitely. Staying in Nemesis form indefinitely sounds pretty strong, right? Like, that's a bigger deal, in my opinion, probably, than the fact that it's just dealing like a small bit of AoE damage per second, because I don't know how much that is. I don't know if it's 50 damage a second or 10 damage a second, or what is it, right? And the bigger that number, obviously, the more impactful that's going to be. But before we go into that, let's just talk about this, right? So Ramattra's ult makes him want to stand next to the enemy team. But look at the meta right now, right? Look at the meta as it currently stands. And the meta might not hold. Meta might be just completely demolished, and it probably will be. But look at Monkey, all right? Let's say both Monkey and Ramattra ult. They both ult. Isn't Monkey just going to push Ramattra out of the fight and then jump back to his team? Isn't he just going to push Ramattra out of the fight? All Ramattra has to do is be out of the fight for 3 seconds in total, and his ult goes away. And meanwhile, Monkey is primaled for 10 seconds. So it sounds to me like not only can Monkey use his primal to completely negate Ramattra's ultimate, but he can probably do that in a course of just like a window of 5 seconds, and then he still has another 5 seconds of primal to go fuck off and do something else. Like, he can do way more with primal than Ramattra can do with Annihilation. I think that if Monkey just holds primal for Annihilation, I think Ramattra gets absolutely nothing out of Annihilation. Now, let's take a look at Roadhog. All right. What happens if a Roadhog uses his ult? You think the power block is going to stop the knockback? Probably not. Maybe it does. If it does, then great. But if it doesn't Hog just like shit on this ultimate? If Hog holds his ult for Rom's ult, doesn't Rom get nothing? 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Doesn't whole Hog last for like 6 seconds or 8 seconds, something like that? It's long enough. It's long enough that you can absolutely just negate the ult. Rom gets no value. So, not only that, but like, if you catch him in a small room, I don't think Rom can do anything about it anyway. Like, let's say you are in a small room and both people pop their ult and you can't actually escape Rom's annihilation area of effect. What if you still just hog ult him into a wall? Like, even if he uses power block, like, isn't point blank whole hog worth nearly 5,000 damage? Even if you take like I'll just move this over to Roadhog just for a second. All right. Overall, 4,928 damage. If you put that point blank against a wall and you say, hey, Ramattra, would you like to hold up your fists? Sure, that's fine. 4,928 times 0.75. 4,928 times 0.25. You'll still take 1,232 damage. Enjoy that. You only have 600 health. I'm not getting my damage reduced just because I'm inside of your annihilation anymore, because that was removed. You have a little bit of armor. I don't give a fuck. You're still going to take about 1,000 damage. I think that Ramattra just usually dies in that scenario, even with the power block. Like, if he has to power block the whole time, then he's not punching. If he's blocking, he's not pummeling. So what damage is he offering to his team? I don't know. Let's look at Orisa. Right? Orisa has a spinny javelin that can push Ramattra away from her team into an irrelevant position. And she also has a javelin that can throw him even further away. 2 abilities that are not her ultimate ability that she can always have available to her. And they both seem to do a good job at pushing Ramattra away from her team. She's been meta for a while. We've been looking at her for quite a while. Let's keep going. Let's look at Sigma. Ramattra only gets 3 seconds on the duration of this annihilation, okay? 3 seconds is all you get. Now, yes, it pauses, okay? Yes, you do get a pause if you can hit somebody, if you can be like on top of somebody. But Sigma's rock knocks you to the ground. It makes you have to get up for a second. It kind of like stuns your movement a little bit too and gives you a chance to kite, okay? And so all it takes is a well-timed rock and a good kite. And it's kind of possible, I think, that even a Sig comp can kind of get away from this. Like, I don't even think Ramattra is like an auto win against the Sigma comp. What if Sig has ult? Can't we just lift? Just lift him? That's not what I want. Go here. There we go. Gravitic Flux. 50 damage, movement speed, yeah. Max range, 35 meters. Air of effect, 7 meters. Lifts up to 10.3 meters. Reminder, 10.3, very close to the 11-meter range of annihilation. Which means if this is the ground and you lift Ramattra up off of the ground, right? Let's say this is Ramattra. Let's say this is the 11-meter range around him. All right, it's going to look kind of like, oh my God, my circles are bad. Look kind of like this. All right. So now, if you lift him up here, then what's the duration? You can select an area up to 5 seconds in the air, 1 second confirm, suspend, 2 seconds suspend. 2/3 of Ramatra's ultimate is spent right here in the air, 10.3 meters up. And he can kind of get down to the ground, but if you're just standing like right here, all right, hello, I'm outside of your radius. Outside of it. Your timer's ticking down for 2 seconds. Yeah. It would seem like Sigil is also pretty good against Annihilation. Just an idea. Let's look at Reinhardt. Reinhardt. Rom uses Annihilation, approaches your team. You use Shatter, and you leave. Rom's on the ground. Tick tock, tick tock. 3 seconds. 3 seconds to touch somebody. Clock's ticking. It goes away. What if Ramattra uses ult and Ryan just pins him? Power block doesn't block the pin. Ryan just pins him away. He goes really far away. So during that time, yes, the Annihilation is going to stay up. Ryan might die through that. Probably actually does die. I don't really see how he lives through that. Considering that, well, maybe he does. Actually, because because of the armor, I think let's take a look at Reinhardt. I wanted to make sure I can get this right. Charge. Into wall, 225 damage. Bump is 50. So they've reduced this in Overwatch 2. Pin to wall, 225 damage. And armor now blocks 30%. So 225 times 0.7. It'll do 157.5 damage because of the armor. Okay. And then from there, that will be fully depleted on his armor because he'll go from 600 minus 157.5, I believe that was. And we're down to 442.5 HP for the Ramattra. From there, I mean, they're just going to be pummeling each other back and forth. Okay. That's whatever. Ryan does more damage per second, sustained over time, because Ramattra only does 100. Ryan does 106.5. So it would seem to me that in that duel, assuming it's a neutral duel between the two, I think that Ryan might win that, depending on whether or not Ramattra got a pummel before he got hit with the charge. It's close. All right. If Rom comes out of that alive, it's either because he got peel or because he got a little bit of damage on the Reinhardt ahead of time. The team maybe hit the Reinhardt while he was charging a little bit. But all in all, like, Rom is out of the fight. The team can capitalize on that. If it turns attention and turns healers towards the Ramattra so that the Ramattra can stay alive in that duel and they can capitalize on the Rhine being kind of out of position, then your team should be able to make easy pushes on whoever didn't turn around. The people that aren't now getting any healing from the healers because of that. So I feel like Rhine might be pretty neutral against it, but overall, I don't even think Rhine has that bad of a matchup when it comes to just talking about Annihilation. The others, a lot more iffy. I don't know. Ball, kind of weird. We'll have to figure out how that one's going to work out. So Ball, I don't know. I'm going to put a question mark there. Doom, I don't know. And mainly, the big reason I don't know is because Doomfist is getting buffed in some way. They didn't tell us how. They said they're going to buff him. And they mentioned that it was going to be something maybe to do with the power block. So actually, they did not mention that. I'm now remembering. They did not mention that. That's just an idea. So we think it's going to be something to do with his power block. It could be something to do with mobility. We'll see. It could be doing more damage with the punch. We don't know. It just said the identity of the hero will be preserved. So he's still going to be using a fist. It's still going to be a fist hero. We'll see. We don't know how the match is going to be. I don't know how they're going to buff Doom, so I have no idea. Who else is there? Goddamn. Imagine not knowing what all the tank heroes are. Ball, Doom, JQ. Another one, big question mark, because Junker Queen is getting buffs. We don't know how. They didn't tell us how. So I'm not sure. Seems like not a fantastic matchup. Mainly just because Junker Queen kind of does want a team to follow her around. If you remember Jotes, I think that's kind of like the ideal situation for Junker Queen. She does kind of want to play this sort of like scrappy, not quite brawl, but not quite spam kind of comp. And in that kind of situation, I do feel like Nemesis for him from Rom is actually pretty good. And him being able to put the slow field down is pretty good against the Junker Queen. So we'll see. I don't know what they're going to do to JQ. Probably going to give her some buffs, but we don't quite know yet. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm missing 2 tanks. It's going to be Diva and Zarya. So Diva and Zarya. These I don't know either. Not quite sure. Diva. I don't know honestly. It depends on how it depends on how Nemesis does against Diva's mech. I don't know. I mean, it seems like if you go outside of Nemesis form, if you break Nemesis, you don't have it anymore, and it's on 8-second cooldown, and all you have is a deployable shield that doesn't really get deployed very often, and that's the only thing you've got, then if Diva still has mech and she's still mildly healthy, can't she just jump on you and kill you? It seems like. I'm not quite sure. I mean, Rom can headshot. I think the Rom actually does do a lot of damage to Diva. However, if Diva can just like eat all of that and do micro missiles up close, it does seem like Diva does play up close against non-Nemesis better than Rom. However, it also seems pretty easy for Rom in general to probably demech the Diva. It does seem kind of crazy how Rom can just fire a very fast stream of projectiles towards Diva and force her to either matrix or take insane headshot damage. So I'm going to say Rom altogether probably pretty good against Diva. Against Zarya. Um, I would think that Zarya in general can probably get a lot of charge off of the Rom comp. Rom comps, if they're not built like this, if they're built, actually, even if they are built like this, it does seem like you've got like vulnerable targets potentially to dive, and Zarya does want to just like bubble in a Genji deep or bubble in like a Tracer or someone like deep and really pressure these kinds of vulnerable non-mobility, well, I just say non-mobility, vulnerable targets that are often left without mobility or left without any way of like an oh shit button, where Sojo, like you can see Sojo do a rotation, you can rotate on her and do a thing. Or if Ana, she just has a sleep dart, you have to outplay. It would seem to me like Zarya would be really good at enabling her team to get these kinds of picks. Altogether, I'm not sure how the duel between these two would go. Zarya's ult seems really good against Annihilation. I mean, you literally just like grab the Ramattra, he doesn't move. But it's also super likely that Annihilation ult charges faster than Zarya's Grav. Like Zarya Grav, kind of known for being this ult that takes a long time to charge. Rom's a new hero. He's going to have like new hero buff. He's going to just be really fast to charge ult, probably. Remains to be seen, but we'll see. Okay, and then with that, let's talk about some of these just to kind of regroup on this. Sojourn expected to get nerfed. Fall off on rail. What does that mean? It just means that she's not going to be like straight up free, absolute, better than Widow in every situation, pretty much. Depending on how aggressive this fall off is, we'll see. If Sojourn can't kill people as easily and as instantaneously from like more than 20 meters away, and I think they're doing it right. I think that's kind of how you adjust this hero a little bit so that they're not just like, they're not at like Ash distance or Widow distance or like really far away and just like click head, ha, got him. That's it. No more just randomly arbitrarily killing a Lucio like 40 meters away on a wall. Like, okay. That's kind of dumb. And she's already good enough that this is still. I think that even with this change, she could still be, even at like 20 meters starting to fall off, she could still be really good because she still does have vertical and horizontal mobility. She still has this crazy good slow feel that just blocks angles and acts as a May wall, almost where you can like split the enemy team apart. You can put it behind them, make it harder for them to retreat. It does. She does so much, and her overclock is still going to be good. Not as good, but it's still going to be good. You don't have to worry quite as much about rail. I think this is a great change. Doomfist expected to get the buff. We still don't know how. I'm personally not looking forward to a Doomfist meta. That's for damn sure. Just because like Doom moves so fast, and personally, I think that when Doom is meta, that's real fun for Doomfist players. Not a whole lot of fun for everyone else. So supports already have it kind of rough, sort of at the moment. Um, and I don't think they need to make it worse by making Doomfist absolutely insane. It's okay if Doomfist is good and he's like playable rather than F tier, but I certainly don't want him to be part of the S tier list. Hopefully, Ana buffs, we don't know how, but we know they're going to buff Ana. Whenever they adjust Ana, it's been to her ammo or to her cooldowns. So we're probably not going to see a rework of the hero. We're probably just going to see her sleep dart come down to maybe 12 seconds. Bastion buff. We still don't know how, but I think people really do like the turret form, how it's kind of like on a cooldown, and so it's a polyphasic hero where you have phases that you can do a certain thing, and then phases where you can't, and so it has a lot of I think healthy outplayability. But they do need to make some kind of adjustment because his primary fire is pretty weak. His little mine thing is cool, I guess, but it's not that strong. It's not that impactful. It's not something that people even worry about that much. It's just like a silly thing that he can do. Um, so that might need a rework. And then his ultimate is honestly not that strong. In some scenarios, you can find a good time to use it, but it's really not even one that people worry too much about. Generally, there's enough movement speed, especially in the movement speed meta, given that Lucio's in almost every single team comp, that people are not just, they're just not dying very often to this, unless it's comboed with something that like CCs the whole enemy team. And at that point, it's like, do you have to have crowd control to even make his ultimate good? Question mark. So hopefully we see like a slight rework here. Hopefully it's not just a cooldown or a damage change, that we start seeing something that like really brings Bastion into the fold, something that like gives him the ability to be decent other than just only in turret form is he even on the battlefield. Otherwise he's just completely cosmetic. With Junker Queen buffs coming in, they didn't tell us how, didn't really give us any hints. Honestly, it's just probably looking at self-sustain to help her live longer. Before they reduced her commanding shout from 15 seconds to 11, and they also reduced the amount that gives to allies, and that part was like the big one. I think it was before 200 to self and 100 to allies. And if we look at it now on commanding shout, it is now 200 self, 50 for allies. It was the 100 to allies that made Jotes, right? That was why it was so broken. The fact that your Genji could almost die, but LOL, here's another 100. And while you get that 100 temporary HP, LOL, here's a pack, or maybe another pack. Just a second. To cough there, sorry. It's another, like, you just get pack, you would get commanding shout, and it would just be invincible for so long. It would be just so hard to kill Genji just because he has so much overhealth, so much area, like just redundant healing with the Inspire and the Lucio and the pack that would come towards him from Brig. But yeah, with only 50, that changed a lot. In changing the commanding shout cooldown from 11 to 15 second made it a lot less consistent. And it was so much different having to wait that extra 4 seconds to use it. And overall, the hero is now not super viable. She doesn't really protect the team as much. The 50 isn't enough to say that she's actually doing anything for her team. So now she is all the way pretty much into the realm of Roadhog, where she's just like completely selfish, totally selfish. She offers nothing to the team other than she exists and she does her own thing. Um, I don't know what they're gonna do, but it may be another adjustment to Commanding Shout. It might be. If it's not that, it's probably going to be the amount of life steal she gets. Yeah. See the adrenaline rush? It says all wound damage that Junker Queen does causes her to heal herself. It might be an adjustment to that so that she has a little bit more personal self sustain and is more motivated to use the melee, use the knife, and use the carnage. Um, just as part of her like rotation, so that she can maintain her own HP pool more. I don't know. I'm imagining that's going to be it. It's either going to be Carnage or um, Adrenaline Rush here. Kiriko nerfs. So we don't know how Kiriko is going to be nerfed, but we assume it's going to be the ultimate ability, probably the ult. And then I don't know what else on the kit they can touch. I don't think they're going to take away the triple damage dink. I think they're going to have to keep that. I don't think they're going to change the damage on Kunai because I think it's actually fine. It's fair where it is. I don't think they're going to touch a Fuda because don't actually think I don't think that's a problem. They might look at Suzu. Suzu is really strong, but they've already nerfed Suzu. They've already nerfed it in the last mid-season patch. So I think if they're going to nerf Kiriko, I think they're gonna have to look at the ult. It is just really, 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 really strong right now, and might just be too good. Maybe that's just an issue. And then Mercy buff, unknown. Right now, Mercy just doesn't provide enough value to the team because she has to fortify an off angle with enough value that it means more than providing any amount of damage to the team herself. Sometimes that's good, and sometimes, and most of the time, I'd say it's kind of sus. It's kind of like, how much extra value are you providing by fortifying a flank constantly? Like, that flank needs to always be raining hell on the enemy team, and if it's not, then you as Mercy aren't doing shit. You're doing nothing. She's been okay at peeling for people that Monkey alone has dived, but if anyone more than Monkey is diving the same target, she can't out heal it. So in many ways, she just can't peel. She doesn't have effective healing peel, at least in ranks that matter. So I don't know what they're going to do to this hero. Are they going to give her a burst heal? I mean, that would be a game changer. If they gave her a burst heal, that would be a big game changer, actually. If they, I don't know what else they can do. I mean, they can increase the healing sustained output of Beam, but like, I don't know. I don't think they want to increase the damage buff because it's already 30%. That's already kind of a lot. If they put it too much, we wouldn't want to be. I don't think we want to go back into the Moth meta. I don't think we want to. If you start buffing the damage boost, you could be looking again at potentially a Moth meta, a flank meta, like a Mercy. We don't want that. So I'd rather see something more like a burst heal. Excuse me, if they're going to add anything to this hero. Symmetra buffs. They tease something to do with barriers. They might just give her the ability to charge primary fire off of the barriers again, which she desperately needs something like that. I mean, that's not going to fix her. She's still going to be kind of bad. But it'd be nice if she could charge. Like, I don't know why they took so much away from her with that being gone and with the teleporter no longer being permanent. Now it's temporary. It's like, okay. I don't know. They could do more with this hero. I hope they do something nice because right now Sim is not fantastic and is one of those heroes we keep telling people to just swap off of as soon as you lose a team fight because she's just that bad. If you want to play close range If you're trying to play for like the tier 3 beam, why not just play Reaper right now? Reaper's just insane. I'm surprised not to see a Reaper nerf anywhere. That's actually crazy. There's no Reaper nerf. And Reaper's kind of crazy. He's mainly crazy right now though because so many team comps with the monkey, the roadhog, and the Orisa here. All right, they're all like kind of susceptible to the Reaper, right? Like Orisa doesn't want to be close to the Reaper when she brawls. Roadhog's afraid of Reaper kind of like zoning him out, and Monkey just doesn't want to dive anything that a Reaper is nearby because then he has to jump out quickly and doesn't always have his jump to do that. So Reaper's just insane. Maybe when the meta shifts to other heroes, which I'm not actually sure which heroes it's going to be. It's probably going to be 3 heroes again though. That maybe Reaper's just going to lose viability because of the heroes he counters, and I think that's probably where we're headed on that. So he'll naturally just be nerfed because the meta will change in a certain way. Though I honestly I don't know without knowing all of this information that's like unknown until December 6th. Then we're not going to know how the meta is actually going to change. We actually don't know. So on December 6th, we're going to learn a lot of information. We're going to learn what actually is power block. That's a big deal. Does this actually block a sleep dart? Does it block a hook? Does it block a charge? Does it block a like? What does it block really? Is it just damage? Is it just a power block from Doomfist? Because if so, that's not that strong. That is good. It's fine, but it's not anything close to like what Orisa has. It's not Fortify. It's not Spinny Javelin. Right? It's not what Monkey has. I mean shit, it's not what Grasp has. It, it's okay. Um yeah, I mean that I think that pretty much wraps it up. Ramattra is just going to be this hero that wants to define the scope of the fight by placing his barrier. And when he does, everyone in the lobby knows where the fight is going to happen. And he's going to have to commit to that, not only that position, but also commit to that angle. And if he gets pressured out too early, he might be forced into Nemesis form, in which he has to go into to get the armor and block, or force him into the brawl phase too early. If he's not, then he can get a lot of value. Perhaps he can put the field down where the enemy team is so that they can't move away super easily. Maybe you can Lucio speed boost and force brawl into like the slow field damaging aura area, and you can go for good brawls. But it also seems like there's potentially team comps that just simply brawl better, and if that's the case, maybe Rom is not going to be the top brawler. It's possible. It's possible that like maybe Orisa just simply brawls better. Maybe Ryan brawls better. We don't know. Um, we will see. And if that's the case, do you have to build the comp differently and play more like a traditional Overwatch 1 Orisa? We don't know. If you have to do that, I think the Sigma's better, right? If you have to play similar to Overwatch 1 Orisa, wouldn't Sigma just be better? Because if their brawl's better, wouldn't you want to be on a Sigma comp instead? Um, instead of having just like inferior brawl. So in that case, it already seems like there's some triangle where if Rom, which assuming is, if Rom is meta, then the triangle begins with like there's going to exist some brawl comp, all right? Some brawl comp is going to go here that's going to out brawl Rom and make it so that he has to swap because he's not going to be able to stay in that form. What if the swap is Sigma? All right. I don't know. Maybe it's going to look like this in some way. This would be, I guess, maybe my prediction as to what we might see. But again, we don't know what all the numbers are. We don't know what all this information is over here. And maybe Monkey's still good. There could be more than just a triangle. It could be like there's like maybe this arrow's not here. Maybe there's another one here and another one over here. Maybe this one is Monkey. Oh, would it be like that? I don't know if this could be a thing. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. That's what I could say. It's gonna be interesting for sure. So I'm excited for it. I hope you learned something in this video, and if you want to talk about it more, hit me up. And I'm excited to also talk about it more because this is all super interesting to me. Anyway, that's gonna be all for now, and have a good weekend.